Welcome to the Mukilteo Football Show. My name is Miles. The Seattle Seahawks beat the Chicago Bears 6-3 in what started as a punt fest. One of those games where like, when's this game going to start? And ended with the Bears fans in tears and the Seahawks fans. You know, we're okay. It's Boxing Day. They tried to sell the drama that this was like the Seahawks playing for their playoff lives, but not really, right? It just so many of the scenarios are working for the Rams that you just kind of didn't really feel like this was our year either. And we're kind of feeling it too. So Seahawks fans get the blah. The defense looked good. The Bears defense looked good too. I thought this wasn't Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, Colts Broncos, from 2022, the famous Amazon game that was just the worst. Well, those are two horrible offenses against two shitty, bad tackling defenses too. Just ineptness across the field. This wasn't that. This was, a better viewing experience, in my opinion. There were some good defensive playmakers out there. There were some good offensive playmakers out there. But the same thing is plaguing both teams, which is just the offensive lines. It's just bad out there. And I don't know that there's, elite coaching on either side either. I like Mike McDonald, but I don't know yet, right? The story is the Bears. Let's face it. I know I'm a Seahawks fan, and we will have plenty of time to talk Seahawks, because presumably that Rams game is going to mean at least something. Maybe it's a long shot. Maybe it's a Hail Mary. Oh, sorry, Bears fans. Sorry to bring up Hail Mary. But that is where this all started. Like I said, the Bears are the story. Week 8. They come off their bye. They're 4-2. Caleb Williams just had, his best game in London against Jacksonville on October, week 6 or whatever. They do the Jaguars game, big Caleb Williams game, bye on week 7, come into week 8. They're on their way to just an ugly fest of beating the Commanders. The number 1 overall pick's going to beat the number 2 overall pick in a game that I called, weirdly, not about Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. Until it was, right? Jaden Daniels throws that Hail Mary. And what we saw tonight is the continued echoes. Like that Hail Mary is going to go down in history more because of this 10-game losing streak that has followed. It's just, I love how sometimes like the things that happen after infuse a play with like more importance. But the Bears, man, and if they lose next week to the Packers, who may be resting their guys, that'll be even worse. And the way they've been losing, the way they came back against the Vikings and then lost that crusher, the way they just bungled it against the Lions on Thanksgiving Day with a absolutely baffling clock management situation, something I've never seen. And then tonight, they pull another clock management issue that I have never seen. I have never seen such incompetence. Like, I mean, we throw that word around too much. But yes, Seahawks, Bears, they were battling out, troubles all over the place. The Bears did have a chance to go tie this game or win this game at the end. And they just, it was absolutely bizarre. Caleb Williams has a little scramble on 3rd and long, is inches short. They're still 20, 30 yards from field goal range, down 3. It's 4th and inches, and they false start. Now it's 4th and 5. And they send out the punter, and they call a timeout. That changed the whole equation of the game. Because they had 3 timeouts. So had they punted, there was still a 2-minute warning left in play. They could have trusted their defense and gotten the ball back. Now that they called a timeout in their indecision, they've significantly reduced the situation. If the Seahawks hand it off 3 times, they're going to get an extra 40 seconds off the clock now because of your indecision, which is a preventable error because you could just make the decision whether you're going for it or punting. So it's absolutely baffling. That was going to be the story of the day. And I was happy to see Caleb Williams coming back out on the field, punter jogging off. And he just had this shake of a head like, we're not doing this. We're not having this be the story of the day. That would have been the ultimate story. False start, punters on the field, timeout, go for it on 4th and 5, miss it. That would have been the ultimate story. But Caleb Williams rolls out. They blitz the heck out of him because the offensive line couldn't pick it up. But he rolled right, instant pressure, files one of his rocket balls. Then he gets a 3rd and 14 on the next series, which is also another rocket ball, perfectly in the middle of the field. And then they're in position for a 57-yard field goal, and they don't do it. Ben Solak posted like, that's ridiculous. I don't think it's ridiculous to not go for a 57-yard field goal at Soldier Field in December 26th. I don't think that's ridiculous. What is ridiculous is the play calling before that. They just kept throwing deep. This is what happened to them against the Lions. And then they, on the way to this, from that 4th and 5 to the 4th and 10, which is only like 6 plays later, they burned the other 2 timeouts. That's the weird part. They're like indecision and inability to call the play burned all the timeouts that could have given them so many other options. Now they burned a timeout before that 4th and 10. So if they converted it, they would have to run up there and spike it. But why did they burn it? Why? It's just indecision. It's crazy. And the Bears, that operation is not a functional operation right now. And no, the coach and the players, they're not tanking it. They're not doing this on purpose. You're too online if you think that happens with real human beings. Everyone knows that's not the way to tank. The interim coach has a career. He wants to better it. The players have careers. They want to better their careers. The way you tank is you hire an interim coach and players who can't do it. They're going to try, but they can't do it. That's how you tank. And the Bears are doing a great job. Hopefully. Hopefully. Oh, man. For the Seahawks, so we now, and I say we because I'm a Seahawks fan, we need the Cardinals to beat the Rams on Saturday for a clean, okay, Week 18 matters now situation. That's what we need. Cardinals beat the Rams. Now, that's not super likely. Anything can happen, but the Cardinals were eliminated last week. But there's an unclean way to still get in the playoffs, even if the Rams beat the Cardinals. So the broadcast could not quite get this. And actually, many of the articles I was trying to go down, they just, a lot of these articles, sporting news, they're almost like AI articles. It feels like they're just killing time. Get to the bottom of the page. And they didn't really say what the playoff scenario was. They just kind of killed time with a bunch of paragraphs. It's not as complicated as I think they're trying to make it. The headline is this: if the Rams beat Arizona in Week 17 and the Seahawks beat the Rams in Week 18, the Rams are still probably going to the playoffs because the first 4 tiebreakers will be tied. Head-to-head, division record, common game record, and conference record will all be tied if the Rams beat the Cardinals and the Seahawks beat the Rams. So you can already foresee that there's this 5th tiebreaker that would come into play. And here's I know that was the headline. That was the subline. This is the headline. That 5th tiebreaker is strength of schedule, and you just can't answer that right now. You're going to have to wait. Okay? You're going to have to wait. It's most likely going to go the Rams' way, but you just don't get to find out right now. There's some things you don't get to find out in the moment. It's like if the Rams beat Arizona, then their strength of schedule is most likely going to be better unless a huge combination of Commanders, Vikings, 49ers, Bills, Bengals, and Browns lose. And Who's going to be keeping track of that? Nobody. You just don't get to know right now. Okay? That's the story. That's the story. And it's most likely Rams. That's all you really need to know. Mukilteo Football Show shows football, everything, NFL history, legacy, ups and downs of a season. Catch us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Well, Christmas Day was fun. Netflix had a few little technical issues right off the bat, but overall seemed to be an okay broadcast. I don't know. I wasn't fully watching, to be honest. I didn't care about these Saturday games or the Wednesday games, because all four teams are already in the playoffs. I get it. Talk to us about the drama of the Steelers and the Ravens. Who's going to get to host a playoff game? And Texans, you got to turn this around before they host a playoff game because that's already clinched. It's been clinched for a while. And the Chiefs, they're going for the 1 seed. You got to clinch it. That was a big thing for me. It was the 1 seed is at stake today. It's no, it is not. They can clinch the 1 seed. If they lose, they still have a chance at the 1 seed. That's not at stake. When you bet $50 to win $1,000, you don't have $1,000 at stake. You have $50 at stake. But that's a pedantic point. I don't know. I have a hard time selling it. I can't do it. I can't be like I was talking about the guy on the microphone screaming, Seahawks, Seahawks, when we're down by 20. I can't be that guy. Come, don't you know? I'm not a salesman, I guess. Stop trying to pump me up about these games. Be honest. There's not that much at stake in these games. And I left Christmas Day Netflix with basically, no real takeaways. The football even was, blowouts. I worry myself, and maybe this is just, confirmation bias, but the players, there is just a level of energy level that's down. And that's I don't mean they're not trying, but the game at its best is historic, epic, ethereal best is the playoffs when they are shelling out their own bodies for yards and inches. Football is brutal, man. It's brutal. And it's you got to be willing to put your body into harm's way. They do it anyway, even for the low stakes games, but they really do it. And the peak of the game is playoffs. You have no idea what these guys do to play these football games. It's nuts. And that creeps in. Having all these car crashes, every play is a car crash. Having those happen when you already clinched is different. It's different. And I thought the NBC game on Sunday night, Christmas Eve, Dallas, Tampa Bay, that they had a really good point that this sounded like playoff football because it was. I think the Cowboys came out and said, we're going to give it the extra gear because we're not going to need it. We lost our playoffs, and good for them to make that choice to do it. And the Bucs needed the game, so they're going to match. So the Cowboys knew that. They knew if they gave the extra gear, the Bucs are playing for the actual playoffs, so they're going to get that type of game. That type of game was not there on Wednesday on Netflix. Anyway, I'm just ranting. The Chiefs were in red robes. Andy Reid was Santa. Beyonce was singing Blackbird by the Beatles. Jolene by Dolly Parton. It's a great time. The Ravens are happy too. They were 8-5 on December 14th. They were 11-5 by Christmas night. So both Ravens and Chiefs beat the Steelers and Texans across 5 days. I'm worried about the Steelers. They look like the absolute classic Mike Tomlin team that's going to win enough games, but then lose big in the playoffs. It's almost so obvious. I feel like it's not going to happen this time. I don't know. I'd keep a pin in that. And the Texans, then they just feel like the Walking Dead on their way to a playoff game. Just like, we have to win the AFC South and go and get pounded by somebody. Though they may play each other. Texans and Steelers may play each other, so someone may get a win there. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Actually, Lamar Jackson's rushing record. I'd love to touch on that a bit because he'd set that in the all-time quarterback rushing record in the game, Netflix game on Wednesday. They showed a big graphic like he did it in 41 fewer games than Michael Vick. Also, he won 2 MVPs and has had a lot more success. He's won 2 playoff games. I think Vick won 2 in his whole career. But the thing that struck me with these graphics that Netflix was putting up was Lamar Jackson, his career hasn't really been compared to Michael Vick. At first, yes, but I just, once he won that MVP in 2019, which was his first major year starting, it kind of just went away, and you wouldn't have thought that would be the case. Michael Vick, he won a couple playoff games early in his career, and if you were talking to somebody in 2005, say there's going to be a even better rushing quarterback in about 15 years, 20 years, and he's going to break the record, and he's going to be like super Michael Vick, you would have thought, wow, well, that'll be pretty exciting for everybody when this new Michael Vick is coming. But Lamar Jackson's not the new Michael Vick. No one talks about that, like him that way. He's getting more of the Peyton Manning can't win it all treatment. That's where Lamar is, and that's because he's winning MVPs. And sure, there's certainly some unpleasant undertone racist people out there, but, I don't think that's the overall. Overall, the whole Lamar Jackson good for a running back stuff is gone. It's more of a joke now. It's more of a haha, you were wrong. I mean, Lamar Jackson's passing stats blow Michael Vick's out of the water. So not just 2 MVPs, but also Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's got 20,000 yards and 164 career touchdowns in 40, or 100 games, 40 less than Michael Vick, who had a little bit more yards and way less touchdowns than that. I think Vick had 133 career passing touchdowns. So Lamar Jackson, in 3 less seasons worth of starts, basically has already 30 more touchdowns than Michael Vick passing. So that's how impressive this is. That's to me, this shows Lamar Jackson and how iconic he will be. Like, we will look back on these days wondering these primetime matchups we got between Lamar and Mahomes and Allen and Burrow, how lucky we were. That's the story of this decade. Just don't lose track of it. Don't get bored with it. It's awesome. It's awesome. The other big story, of course, Derrick Henry had a bunch of yards, 147 rushing yards, though I call it 165 yards because why don't his 18 receiving yards count? But even with that big game, he's not going to get to a big situation with Saquon Barkley. I was hoping for like a Maguire-Sosa thing, both of them going for Dickerson's record, his rushing yards record, but then they both kind of had, little fits and starts, which makes sense. And even the projections are adding that extra game. They need an extra game to beat Eric Dickerson. Saquon Barkley is let's see, he's 250 yards behind Eric Dickerson right now. So if this was the last week, like it has been for the previous 40 years, we wouldn't even be talking about Saquon in context of Eric Dickerson. Really, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it if you get week 17. This record is you just have to have it in 16 games. I'm sorry. You have to. You can't do it in the 17th game, not this one. Because people have come so close. The 2012 Adrian Peterson, the 97 Barry Sanders. All of those were such big moments. You can't do it in 17. You can't. Sorry, Saquon. You're not close anyway. I mean, I was surprised just looking at that. He has, 1838. Okay, Dickerson's at 2100. He's not close at all. I guess I could have looked this up earlier. Why did I think he was closer? He does have, okay, so 21, 14 yards from scrimmage. That's awesome. But, yeah, interesting. Well, anyway. Yeah, I'll be back for a few other podcasts, but really, honestly, just cruising for the playoffs here. I mean, let's just get to the playoffs, and then let's have some fun. All right, my name is Miles. Goodbye.